The officer's hand rested on his holster, his voice sharp and commanding. "Step away from the car now." Across the hotel's valet lot, Keanu Reeves stopped mid-step, his coffee cup trembling slightly as he tried to process what was happening. He had stepped out of the luxury hotel expecting a calm morning in San Francisco, only to find a scene that could easily spiral out of control. Parked in front of him was his sleek, black Porsche 911 Carrera 4S, its glossy finish gleaming under the morning sun. But the sight of his car wasn't what made his breath catch. It was the boy standing beside it, a young black teenager, no older than 16, with wide, terrified eyes and shaking hands raised slightly in the air. His name, Keanu would later learn, was Malcolm. Malcolm wasn't touching the car, but the officer standing a few feet away clearly thought otherwise. "I wasn't doing anything." Malcolm's voice cracked as he backed away. His sneakers scuffed against the pavement, the sound far too loud in the tense silence. The officer took a step forward. "I said step away." His hand tightened on his belt, just inches from his weapon. "Hey!" Keanu's voice cut through the air like a siren, stopping the officer in his tracks. Everyone turned, Malcolm, the officer, the hotel staff watching nervously from behind the valet podium. "What's going on here?" Keanu asked, his tone calm but firm. The officer narrowed his eyes. This kid was trying to break into the car. Saw him peering through the window, acting suspicious. Keanu set his coffee cup on the hood of a nearby car and approached slowly, keeping his hands visible to avoid escalating the situation. "That car," he said, pointing to the Porsche, "is mine." The officer blinked, caught off guard. "Yours?" "Yeah," Keanu replied, pulling the keys from his pocket and pressing the button. The car's lights blinked twice, confirming his words. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." For a moment, no one spoke. The tension hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The officer shifted his weight, clearly debating whether to double down or back off. Malcolm lowered his hands slowly, his breathing still ragged. "I wasn't trying to steal it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I just wanted to look inside. I've never seen a car like that up close." Keanu felt his chest tighten. The boy's fear was palpable, and it wasn't just about the car or the cop, it was about something deeper, something Keanu couldn't ignore. He turned to the officer, meeting his gaze head-on. "I appreciate you being thorough," Keanu said carefully. "But there's no crime here. The kid wasn't doing anything wrong." The officer hesitated, his fingers flexing at his side. Finally, he exhaled sharply and nodded. "All right," he said, his voice gruff. "But be careful next time, kid." With that, he turned and walked back to his patrol car, leaving Keanu and Malcolm standing in the middle of the lot. The boy's shoulders sagged with relief as he wiped at his eyes. "Thank you," Malcolm murmured, barely meeting Keanu's gaze. Keanu crouched slightly to be at eye level with him. "You okay?" Malcolm nodded, but his hands were still trembling. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. I've seen cars like that in movies, but never in real life. I wanted to see what the inside looked like." Keanu's heart ached at the simplicity of the boy's explanation. What had started as innocent curiosity had nearly turned into a nightmare. "Come on," Keanu said, standing up and nodding toward the car. "Let's take a closer look. I'll show you the inside myself." Malcolm's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really," Keanu said, unlocking the passenger side door. Malcolm hesitated for only a second before climbing inside, running his fingers lightly over the leather seats and polished dashboard. "This is amazing," he whispered, his fear slowly giving way to awe. "I didn't know cars could smell this good." Keanu chuckled and slid into the driver's seat. "It's the leather," he explained. "High-end cars like this have a specific smell. But it's not just about the look or smell, it's about the experience." Malcolm nodded, his fingers tracing the stitching on the armrest. "I never thought I'd sit in a car like this. My mom and I take the bus everywhere. She works 2 jobs, so we don't have a car." Keanu's smile faded slightly as he listened. The boy's words were a stark reminder of the privilege he had and the struggles many others faced. "Where are you headed today?" Keanu asked. "Just downtown," Malcolm replied. I was gonna walk, but then I saw the car parked here and… He trailed off, shrugging sheepishly. Keanu tapped the steering wheel thoughtfully. How about I give you a ride? It's the least I can do after all this. Malcolm's mouth fell open. You mean it? Yeah, Keanu said, starting the engine. The car purred to life, the sound smooth and powerful. Buckle up. As they pulled out of the lot, Keanu glanced over and saw the wonder in Malcolm's eyes as the city blurred past them. The boy's earlier fear had melted away, replaced by excitement and joy. For Keanu, this wasn't just a ride. It was a moment of connection, a chance to make a difference, even if only for a day. Do you like cars? Keanu asked as they cruised down the boulevard. Yeah? Malcolm replied eagerly. I watch car shows on TV all the time. I know about engines, horsepower, all that stuff. But I've never been in a car like this before. Keanu smiled, impressed by the boy's enthusiasm. Maybe one day you'll own a car like this. Malcolm laughed, the sound light and carefree. I wish. But that feels like a dream that's too big. Keanu's grip on the wheel tightened slightly. No dream is too big, he thought. But he didn't say it aloud, not yet. They drove in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Keanu pulled over near a small park. You hungry? He asked. Malcolm nodded. A little. Let's grab something to eat, Keanu said, pointing to a food truck parked nearby. My treat. As they sat on a bench with sandwiches and drinks, Keanu listened as Malcolm talked about his life, his school, his friends, and his dreams of becoming a mechanic. The more he listened, the more Keanu realized how special this boy was. And somewhere between bites of their sandwiches, an idea began to form in Keanu's mind. An idea that would take this ride from being just a good memory to something much bigger. Keanu wiped his hands on a napkin and leaned back against the bench, watching Malcolm sip his drink. The boy was more relaxed now, his laughter echoing in the background noise of the bustling city. But Keanu couldn't shake the thought of how scared Malcolm had been just a short while ago. The sight of the officer gripping his holster, the fear in the boy's eyes, it was a scene Keanu knew would stay with him for a long time. As Malcolm wiped a crumb off his shirt, he looked over at Keanu. Thanks for this. I don't know anyone who would have done what you did back there. Keanu shrugged, offering a small smile. It didn't feel right letting things end like that. You weren't doing anything wrong. You just got caught in the wrong moment. Malcolm nodded and fell silent for a moment. It happens more than you think, he said quietly, his gaze dropping to the ground. Cops don't give kids like me the benefit of the doubt. Keanu's chest tightened at the boy's words. He wasn't naive, he knew about the harsh realities many people faced, but hearing it firsthand from a kid who should have been thinking about school and friends, not survival, hit him differently. I get that, Keanu said softly. But today, you don't have to worry about any of that. You're here, you're safe, and you're having a good day. That's what matters. Malcolm smiled faintly, his shoulders relaxing a bit more. So, do you do this often? Pick up random kids and take them for rides in your fancy car? Keanu laughed, the sound warm and genuine. No, this is a first. But something about today felt different. I couldn't just walk away. Malcolm grinned. Well, I'm glad you didn't. After they finished their food, Keanu stood and stretched. All right, where to next? You got any plans for the day? Malcolm looked up at him, a spark of excitement in his eyes. I was supposed to go downtown to meet some friends, but honestly, this is way cooler. Keanu chuckled and gestured toward the Porsche. Come on, let's make the most of it. They climbed back into the car, and Keanu navigated through the city streets with ease. They passed iconic landmarks, bustling neighborhoods, and quiet parks, all while Malcolm excitedly pointed out things he recognized or had seen on TV. The boy's energy was contagious, and Keanu found himself laughing more than he had in weeks. As they drove along the coast, the sparkling water glistening under the midday sun, Keanu asked, So, you mentioned you like cars. What's your dream car? Malcolm didn't hesitate. A Lamborghini Aventador, he said with a wide grin. I've seen them online and they're insane. The sound, the speed, the design. It's like driving a spaceship. Keanu nodded approvingly. Good choice. Ever thought about working with cars? Maybe becoming a mechanic or a designer. Yeah, Malcolm admitted. I've always loved taking things apart and figuring out how they work. My mom says I could be an engineer, but I don't know. College is expensive, and we're just trying to get by. Keanu's fingers tightened around the steering wheel, but he kept his tone light. You never know what opportunities might come your way. Keep doing what you love, and things have a way of working out. Malcolm didn't say anything for a moment, but Keanu could see the gears turning in his head. The boy had potential, that much was clear. But potential needed a push, a door that someone was willing to open. They pulled into a parking lot near the beach, and Keanu turned off the engine. Let's take a walk, he suggested, grabbing a pair of sunglasses from the dashboard. The salty breeze was refreshing as they strolled along the boardwalk, watching surfers ride the waves and families build sandcastles on the shore. Malcolm talked about his school, his friends, and his dreams, and Keanu listened intently, offering advice when he could but mostly letting the boy share his story. Eventually, they found an empty bench overlooking the ocean. Malcolm kicked off his shoes and buried his toes in the warm sand. It's been a while since I've been to the beach, he said, his voice tinged with nostalgia. My mom used to take me when I was little, but we haven't had time lately. Keanu leaned back, letting the sun warm his face. You should come more often. Everyone needs a place to recharge. Malcolm nodded, then hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course, Keanu replied, turning to face him. What's it like being famous? Like, do you ever get tired of people recognizing you everywhere you go? Keanu thought for a moment before answering. It has its moments. Sometimes, it's amazing meeting fans, knowing that something you've done has made an impact. But other times, it can be overwhelming. Privacy becomes a luxury, and you have to be careful who you trust. Malcolm tilted his head, curiosity shining in his eyes. So why do you do it? Keanu smiled softly. Because I love it. Acting, storytelling, it's a part of who I am. And if I can use that to help people or make someone's day better, then it's worth it. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the sound of waves crashing against the shore filling the space between them. Eventually, Malcolm broke the silence with a question Keanu hadn't expected. Do you think someone like me could ever make it big? Keanu turned to him, his expression serious but kind. Absolutely. But it's not about luck or connections. It's about passion, hard work, and believing in yourself even when others don't. If you keep that fire alive, you'll get there. Malcolm nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. I hope so. Keanu placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. You will. The sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the beach. Keanu checked his watch and realized they had been out for hours. I should probably get you home, he said, standing up and stretching. Yeah, Malcolm agreed, slipping his shoes back on. But this was the best day I've had in a long time. Keanu smiled. Mine too. As they walked back to the car, Keanu couldn't help but feel that this wasn't the end of their story. There was something about Malcolm, his resilience, his curiosity, his dreams, that stayed with him. And as they drove back toward the city, Keanu began to think of ways he could help the boy beyond just giving him a ride. As the sun set over San Francisco, the golden light bathed the city in a warm glow. Keanu navigated the Porsche smoothly through the winding streets, Malcolm sitting quietly in the passenger seat. The day had been full of unexpected moments, and though they were headed back to drop the boy off, Keanu wasn't ready to let this connection fade away. You know, Keanu said, breaking the comfortable silence, I don't think we meet people by accident. Malcolm glanced over, his curiosity piqued. What do you mean? Keanu smiled thoughtfully, keeping his eyes on the road. Sometimes, the universe has a funny way of putting us in the right place at the right time. Today could have gone very differently, but instead, here we are. You got to sit in a car you've dreamed about, and I got to meet someone with a passion I respect. Malcolm looked down at his hands, fidgeting slightly. Yeah, but what happens now? It's not like I'll ever be able to afford something like this. Keanu's grip on the steering wheel tightened. He had heard that tone before, the one laced with resignation, the one that spoke of dreams that seemed too far out of reach. That's where you're wrong, Keanu said gently. You're young. The path isn't clear yet, but that's what makes it exciting. You don't have to know everything right now. They pulled up to a modest apartment complex, the building worn but clean, with children playing on the sidewalk and a woman sweeping her front steps. Malcolm sighed, looking at his home. "Thanks for today," he said, his voice sincere but tinged with the sadness of having to say goodbye. Keanu turned off the engine and faced him. "Before you go, I want you to have something." He reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small notebook. The cover was plain, but the pages were lined and ready for whatever Malcolm decided to fill them with. "Write down everything," Keanu said, handing it to him. "Your ideas, your dreams, even the things you think aren't possible. It's not about writing the perfect plan, it's about keeping that fire alive." Malcolm held the notebook as if it were something sacred. "Thanks, but this isn't just a notebook, is it?" Keanu chuckled softly. "Nope. It's a reminder. When you look back on this day, I want you to remember that someone out there believes in you." Malcolm smiled, his eyes bright with a mixture of gratitude and determination. "I won't forget." As Malcolm opened the car door, Keanu spoke again. "If you ever need advice or just want to talk, call this number." He handed the boy a business card with his assistant's contact information scribbled on the back. "She knows how to reach me." Malcolm hesitated, then pocketed the card. "I'll keep it safe." Keanu watched as the boy jogged up the steps to his apartment, turning back one last time to wave before disappearing inside. For a moment, Keanu sat there, reflecting on how such a random encounter had turned into something meaningful. Life had a funny way of working like that. He drove back to his hotel, the night air cooling the city and the streets beginning to quiet. When he stepped into his room, he was greeted by the soft hum of the air conditioner and the faint sound of the city outside the window. But instead of settling down for the night, he paced the room, his mind racing. "I can't let this be the end," he thought. Malcolm had something special, a spark that just needed nurturing. And Keanu knew from personal experience that sometimes, a single act of encouragement could be the difference between someone giving up or pushing forward. He grabbed his phone and scrolled through his contacts, stopping when he found the number he was looking for. It was an old friend who ran a community program focused on mentorship and vocational training for underprivileged youth. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Hi, man, it's been a while." "Yeah, it has," Keanu replied with a chuckle. "Listen, I need a favor." "Anything for you, buddy. What's up?" Keanu explained the day's events, how he had met Malcolm, and why he believed the boy deserved a shot at something more. "I don't want this to be a one-time thing," Keanu said. "He's smart, curious, and passionate about cars. If we could get him into the right program, it could change everything for him." His friend didn't hesitate. "I've got just the thing. We run an after-school program teaching kids about automotive repair, engineering basics, and even design. If he's interested, I can enroll him next week." Relief washed over Keanu. "That's perfect. I'll cover any costs. Just let me know what you need." "You got it," his friend replied. "I'll send you the details tomorrow." After ending the call, Keanu sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window at the glowing skyline of San Francisco. He felt lighter, as if he had taken a step toward something bigger than himself. It wasn't about being a hero or receiving recognition. It was about giving someone else a chance to succeed. The next morning, as Keanu packed his bags and prepared to check out of the hotel, he received a text from his friend with the program's details. He forwarded the information to his assistant, asking her to contact Malcolm's mother and explain everything. No pressure, Keanu included in the message. Only if they're interested. Satisfied, he slipped his phone into his pocket and headed downstairs. The valet brought around the Porsche, and as Keanu slid into the driver's seat, he couldn't help but think of Malcolm's awe when he first saw the car. It was just a car, but to Malcolm, it had been something more. A symbol of possibilities. Keanu pulled out of the hotel driveway and merged onto the highway, the engine purring smoothly as the city faded into the distance behind him. He didn't know what the future held for Malcolm, but he was hopeful. The boy had the drive, the passion, and now, a door had been opened. The rest was up to him. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the streets of Los Angeles as Keanu Reeves pulled into the parking lot of the small community center. A week had passed since his encounter with Malcolm, and today was the day they'd reunite. He had arranged to meet the boy at the center to introduce him to the program, hoping it would be the first step in turning Malcolm's passion for cars into a reality. As he parked the Porsche and stepped out, the familiar smell of asphalt and blooming flowers filled the air. He adjusted his sunglasses and scanned the area, spotting Malcolm sitting on a bench near the entrance, nervously fidgeting with the strap of his backpack. "Hey, Malcolm," Keanu called out, waving as he approached. Malcolm's face lit up, and he jumped to his feet. "Hey, you actually came." Keanu chuckled, giving him a friendly pat on the back. "Of course I did. I told you I believe in you." Malcolm grinned and followed Keanu inside, where they were greeted by Keanu's friend, Marcus, the program director. Marcus was a tall man with a warm smile and a firm handshake, the kind of person who made everyone feel at ease. "Malcolm, this is Marcus. He's in charge here," Keanu said, introducing them. "He's the one who's going to help you get started." Marcus nodded. "We're excited to have you, Malcolm. I heard you're interested in cars?" "Yes, sir," Malcolm replied enthusiastically. "I watch every car show I can find, and I've been teaching myself how engines work by reading manuals online." Marcus raised an eyebrow, impressed. "That's a great start. We've got everything here to help you take that knowledge to the next level: real cars to work on, mentors to guide you, and hands-on projects that'll challenge you." Malcolm's excitement was palpable, and Keanu couldn't help but smile as he watched the boy soak in every word. They toured the facility, passing rows of vehicles in various states of repair. Some were classic cars being restored, while others were modern vehicles used for teaching diagnostics and repair techniques. Malcolm paused in front of a sleek sports car, his fingers hovering just above the hood. "Do we get to work on stuff like this?" Marcus chuckled. "Eventually, but first, we'll start with the basics. Once you prove you know your way around an engine, you'll get a chance to work on the big stuff." Keanu leaned in and whispered, "Sounds like a good challenge, right?" Malcolm nodded, his eyes shining with determination. "I'm ready." After the tour, they returned to Marcus's office to go over the paperwork and discuss the schedule. Keanu sat quietly, letting Malcolm and Marcus handle the details. He didn't want to hover or make it seem like Malcolm needed him to succeed. This was Malcolm's journey, and Keanu was simply opening the door. Once everything was finalized, Marcus handed Malcolm a folder with the program materials. "You start next week," Marcus said. "Come ready to learn and get your hands dirty." "I will," Malcolm promised, clutching the folder like it was a treasure. As they walked back to the car, Malcolm turned to Keanu, his expression serious. "Thank you. I mean it. This is more than I ever expected." Keanu smiled softly. "You earned this. Don't ever forget that. But remember, this is just the beginning. Stay focused, work hard, and trust the process." Malcolm nodded, his resolve evident. "I won't let you down." "I know you won't," Keanu replied, unlocking the car. "Let's get you home." The drive back was quieter than their first ride, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Malcolm was deep in thought, likely imagining all the possibilities that lay ahead. Keanu didn't interrupt him, giving the boy space to process everything. When they pulled up to Malcolm's apartment complex, Keanu parked the car and turned to him. "If you ever need anything, you have my number." Malcolm hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Can I ask you one last thing?" "Of course," Keanu said. "Why did you help me? I mean, you don't know me, and you probably have a million other things to do. Why go through all this trouble for someone like me?" Keanu's gaze softened. "Because I've been where you are, unsure of the future, wondering if I'd ever get my shot. I had people who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, and that made all the difference. Now, it's my turn to do that for someone else." Malcolm's eyes glistened with emotion, but he quickly wiped them with the sleeve of his hoodie. "I'll make you proud." "You already have," Keanu said with a warm smile. Malcolm climbed out of the car, waving one last time before disappearing into the building. Keanu sat there for a moment, the engine still running, as he let the weight of the day sink in. He didn't know where Malcolm's journey would take him, but he was certain the boy had what it took to succeed. As Keanu drove away, the city lights flickered to life, casting a glow over the streets. His phone buzzed with messages and notifications, reminders of the busy life waiting for him. But for now, he ignored them, choosing instead to enjoy the quiet drive and the satisfaction of knowing he had made a difference. Later that night, as Keanu sat on the balcony of his home overlooking the city, he thought about the moments that had led to this day. A broken car, a frightened boy, and a decision to get involved instead of walking away. It wasn't fate, it was choice. And sometimes, choosing to care was all it took to change a life. He picked up his phone and typed a simple message to his assistant, "Keep me updated on Malcolm's progress." He wanted to be there for the boy, even from a distance, and he was ready to support him however he could. As the cool night air brushed against his skin, Keanu leaned back in his chair, feeling at peace. He knew that helping Malcolm wasn't the end of the story, it was the start of something bigger, a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness could create ripples that stretched far beyond what anyone could imagine. Because, in the end, it's not about fame, fortune, or fast cars. It's about the lives we touch along the way.